Over the last several months, we have seen several former AEW stars land in WWE on their developmental brand WWE NXT. From Ricky Saints to Shawn Spears to Lexis King and others, there have been several stars that have had success transitioning to WWE's third brand. Could there be set for more names to arrive from All Elite Wrestling to WWE NXT in the future? We'll let you know in this countdown video. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Before we do, a reminder, you can join the WN365 roster. The link is in the video description below. You can also scan the QR code once it appears on the sidebar. In addition, you can see all of the upcoming watch-alongs and post-shows on the sidebar, whether it be upcoming episodes of Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, both nights of WrestleMania, NXT Stand and Deliver, and more. All the information is in the sidebar, and you can see right there, we are now at 20,587 subscribers. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe as we keep expanding the Wrestle News universe. So let's get into today's countdown. Let's talk about some AEW stars that could be on their way to WWE, specifically the WWE NXT brand. We have seen over the last year or so several stars leave AEW and arrive in NXT. Whether it be recently, like Ricky Saints, the former Ricky Starks, coming to WWE NXT, winning the North American Championship. Whether it be someone like Ethan Page jumping over from AEW to WWE NXT, winning the NXT title. Shawn Spears, another former AEW star, winning the North American Championship. Lexis King going over from AEW as Brian Pillman Jr. to WWE NXT and winning the Heritage Cup. There are several stars, when their contracts expire with AEW or they get released, that they end up in WWE's developmental brand. So who could be the next names that go over from AEW to WWE NXT? Let's get straight into them, and let's begin with Wardlow. Now, Wardlow is an interesting name when it comes to his AEW history, of course. Wardlow, for a long period of time, many thought was going to be one of the top stars within AEW, because Wardlow coming in 2019 in the early days of All Elite Wrestling. In fact, at AEW's All Out pay-per-view back in 2019, a video package aired promoting Wardlow's impending debut. Now, we didn't see him then for a while. Eventually, he made his debut on a November episode of Dynamite, attacking Cody Rhodes. He eventually aligned with MJF and was his bodyguard for the longest period of time. Eventually, he split from MJF, and it led to a match at AEW Double or Nothing back in 2022, where Wardlow just squashed MJF very, very quickly, and many thought this was going to be the beginning of a big babyface push, kind of Bill Goldberg-esque, and we were going to see this monster in AEW. And very quickly, he won the TNT Championship, and people thought, right, we are going to see a kind of Goldberg-esque kind of situation, winning the secondary championship and then eventually moving on to the AEW World Championship. But it just never really happened. He lost the championship to Samoa Joe at Full Gear, ending his TNT title reign at 136 days. You know, he won the title back from Joe at the next pay-per-view in March 2023. But in between all of that, we've had title reigns, start-stop. We've had injuries. He dropped the championship to Wardlow on the TNT premiere episode of AEW Collision in June of 2023. We didn't see him for quite some time. Eventually, he returned as a heel towards the end of 2023 and, you know, was attacking people. He would then align himself with the Undisputed Kingdom, but that never really went anywhere. And we haven't really seen Wardlow now since September of 2024. As I mentioned, it's been very stop-start when it comes to his use on television. Yes, he's been the AEW TNT champion 3 times. Yes, he won the Face of the Revolution ladder match in 2022, but as I mentioned, it's been very stop-start with people questioning the booking of this person that at one point they thought was going to be a really big star. As of right now, at the time of recording this video, he's sidelined reportedly with a knee injury. He's not involved with the Undisputed Kingdom anymore. Many are wondering just what is going to be next for Wardlow when he returns, if he returns to AEW television. As far as his contract situation, people don't really know too much about how long he's still got under his contract. As I mentioned, he has had quite a few injuries and time off of AEW TV, which would mean that he could add time onto his contract. But really, as we go through some of these names, it doesn't really matter because we've seen several AEW stars get their release from their contracts this year alone when they had plenty of time left on it, whether it be Miro, Ray Phoenix, and others. So people like Wardlow could be exactly the same. Now, you think, given Wardlow's lack of experience previously in WWE and his lack of sort of star power, certainly, it's unlikely that he would go straight to the main roster. Obviously, we have seen examples of people going from AEW straight to the main roster, whether it be Rey Fenix, Penta, Cody Rhodes, but they have a lot of experience and some prior experience with WWE in the case of the American Nightmare and in the case of CM Punk. Wardlow, not so much, but he certainly is a name that you could see going to NXT, getting a major push and winning a championship very quickly there, if indeed he was no longer all elite. Let's move on to, this is quite an obvious one, it feels like, that being Danhausen. Now, Danhausen made his way into AEW in 2022, in the early days of 2022, in January of 2022, after Ring of Honor succeeded really to exist, and they released all of the members on their roster. Of course, this was due to monetary issues stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic. Just before Tony Khan actually purchased the company, he made his debut for AEW, and many people thought this was going to lead to a very successful run in All Elite Wrestling. Of course, there'll be lots of merchandise to be sold. He was very popular on social media. It felt like a great fit. And initially in 2022, we really did see that. But unfortunately, we never really kind of got anything more from Danhausen. Eventually, he had the Hookhausen tag team for a period of time. There was a situation where he had a torn pectoral muscle injury during, I think it was a Revolution 0 Hour pre-show match with Orange Cassidy as a tag team. So he got hurt there and was out for a period of time. But then we just never really saw him come back. We saw some vignettes air and people thought he was going to be arriving at sort of Halloween period in sort of 2023, 2024. It never really happened, and he was off TV for just the longest period of time. Now, eventually, he did make his return to television for Ring of Honor, Tony Khan's other, obviously, company that he purchased at Ring of Honor Final Battle at the Hammerstein Ballroom late last year in 2024. But that's it. We still haven't seen Danhausen since. We haven't seen him featured at all. There have been reports and rumors about issues of traveling and availability, creative plans, etc., etc. Possibly an issue is that he's very good friends with CM Punk, has been a vocal advocate of CM Punk, which during a time of transition in AEW wasn't necessarily the best move politically for him. And many have thought that he just would be a better fit in WWE, given how easy he is to merchandise, how much merchandise he sells, being a bit more of a cartoony kind of character, and possibly for the NXT brand that would work perfectly for him, as again someone that doesn't have a huge amount of exposure but certainly could become a very popular character. And that being stressed, the character there as opposed to the in-ring work, which is also just as good. It just feels like he would be a better fit. So it feels like when it comes to Danhausen, his run with AEW is coming to an end. We don't know, again, how long he's under contract for, how long he signed with AEW back in 2022. Of course, time again would be added on because he did have time out of action with the injury. But given CM Punk's influence, particularly when it comes to NXT, which he's helped out that brand quite a lot, is backstage quite a lot, you could see him vouching to bring someone like a Danhausen in. And he just feels like he would be a good fit in WWE in general, given the merchandising and the social media focus that they have when it comes to their WWE superstars. So Danhausen, I could certainly see arriving in NXT if indeed he was let go from AEW. Now, Scorpio Sky, another one that for a long period of time was earmarked to be a top star, a top prospect certainly in AEW, but it just never really happened. He was an AEW original. In January of 2019, when AEW was founded, it was announced that Scorpio Sky, along with Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian of SoCal Uncensored, they signed with AEW. And they were going to be some of these first names actually to put pen to paper on the contracts. In fact, he and Kazarian were crowned the first ever AEW World Tag Team Champions on an October 2019 episode of AEW Dynamite. And once he kind of split away from then, he became a TNT champion. He won the Face of the Revolution ladder match in 2021. And eventually, as I mentioned, he formed a tag team with Ethan Page, becoming the Men of the Year. And eventually, he did win the TNT championship, even had a custom championship bout. He was a two-time AEW TNT champion. But really, since sort of 2022 into 2023, we've just seen not that much at all. He dropped the AEW TNT championship to Wardlow in July 2023 on AEW Dynamite, and since then it's been very, very stop-start for Scorpio Sky, hasn't it? He was one of the names sort of earmarked to be featured it was in July 2022, excuse me, and he was one of those names to be featured on the early episodes of Collision when it looked like it was going to be kind of exclusive rosters, but he was on there for I think an episode, and then he got injured and we didn't see him. He's been on Ring of Honor programming a little bit, but once more, not all that much. If you look at his sort of match history, he's only had 3 matches in 2024 altogether. That was in September and October of 2024. So far in 2025, he's had 4 matches. His most recent one did take place a few days ago at the time of recording this video, so it would appear that he is back to having matches, but his last match for an AEW property was in October of 2023 on an episode of Ring of Honor on Honor Club. As far as a match on AEW television, his last match on AEW TV was on an episode of AEW Collision. That was in September of 2023. That's the really early days, very, very early days of AEW Collision launching back in 2023. So he hasn't had a match for All Elite Wrestling close to 2 years at this point, which again is a huge amount of time. Now, many people could think he could be on his way to WWE or could be on his way out of All Elite Wrestling. If he did go to WWE, again, you don't suspect he would go to the main roster. He doesn't really have that main roster appeal just yet, and he might be a better fit on WWE's developmental brand. Powerhouse Hobbs. Now, this one maybe might be a bit more unlikely, considering Hobbs, whilst many people have suggested that he could be used better by AEW, he still is used somewhat frequently on AEW television, unlike some of the names that we've mentioned before. Now, Hobbs, of course, he has had injuries in the last sort of 18 months or so, really stemming from a challenge against Jon Moxley in April of 2024. Around a year ago, Hobbs unsuccessfully challenged Jon Moxley at the time for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. He sustained a knee injury during that match and he required surgery. Hobbs eventually returned in November of last year. He was a mystery partner for Ricochet, facing off against the Don Callis family. He did challenge Konosuke Takeshita for the AEW International Championship at World's End last year. He did get another opportunity against Jon Moxley for AEW Maximum Carnage, that episode of Dynamite for the World Championship. And people thought, okay, we're going to see him be more prominently featured in the main event scene. After he lost that World Championship match, not so much. He began a feud with Big Bill of the Learning Tree. Hobbs defeated Bill in a street fight. We haven't seen him as much on AEW television in the last couple of months, but certainly they are seemingly actively trying to get him featured on TV. He is one of those names, like several in AEW, that people suggest, could he be used better? He is a former TNT champion that came from his short-lived run with QTV, with QT Marshall when he defeated Wardlow to have the TNT championship. But again, he didn't hold it very long. And it does feel like maybe it could be a case of him going to a place like NXT, getting some more reps in, and then being a big star on the WWE main roster. However, this one does feel a bit more unlikely in comparison to the other names that I've mentioned on the list, as Hobbs is still actively used on the AEW roster pretty frequently, on AEW television pretty frequently, but sometimes the grass can be greener, or he might think the grass is greener on the other side and decide he wants to give WWE a go. Certainly, there's no doubt that WWE would be very interested in securing the services of Powerhouse Hobbs if he became available to them. And finally, what about former AEW Women's World Champion Britt Baker? Britt Baker, her time in AEW recently has been fascinating, to say the least. Of course, one of the biggest names initially in AEW, not so much from a reputation standpoint, but certainly from a booking standpoint, was Britt Baker. Initially, she was the face of the women's division, wasn't she? It was reported on January 2nd of 2019 that she would sign with AEW. She was the face of the women's division. She wasn't the first AEW Women's World Champion. They tried to push her as a babyface. It didn't really work out. She turned heel, got very popular, won the AEW Women's World Championship back in 2021 at Double or Nothing, and people thought, right, this is going to be a big, big time for her. And of course, she won the inaugural Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament as well. But after that, and after dropping the championship, we kind of just saw her disappear. She stepped back from AEW due to a back injury. and was actually in June of last year, 2024, Forbidden Door. She made a return. She was away for over 9 months. She interrupted the TBS newly crowned Strong Women's Champion Mercedes Moné, and there was obviously an explanation about her injury. This led to a match that she had with Mercedes Moné at AEW All in London. But during that period of time, there were rumors and there were rumblings. She'd been suspended by AEW after a backstage altercation with MJF and his girlfriend, Alicia Atout. She was defeated at All in by Moné. We didn't then see her for quite some time. She then returned. She had a match against Penelope Ford on AEW Dynamite. This was in November of 2024. She was confronted by Serena Deeb, with Baker responding, nobody cares towards her. And as of April 2025, that being the time recording this video, we haven't seen her. So we haven't seen her closing in on 5-6 months at this point, and people don't really know why. We know that she's away doing acting work. She was in Cobra Kai, but there have been these reports of heat. There have been these reports of backstage issues. There have been these reports of tension within the AEW Women's locker room centering around her, and maybe it might be a situation where she does need a fresh start. NXT certainly right now is one of the places with one of the stronger women's division in professional wrestling, whether it is the likes of Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, Jordan Grace, Roxanne Perez is still involved in that women's division. And of course WWE does have a strong women's division on the main roster too, but they could certainly use Britt Baker. It'll be interesting to see if she would go to NXT, because again, given her appeal and given the fact that she has been such a prominent member of the AEW roster, you could see her potentially going straight to the main roster in WWE. But NXT arguably has a better women's division than the main roster and a better focus on women's wrestling than the main roster does right now. So it might actually be more beneficial for Baker if indeed she went to WWE to go to NXT first. But as of right now, she is still All Elite, despite what all of the rumors suggest. So there you go, guys. There are 5 names that are currently with AEW that could be on their way to WWE, specifically could be on their way to WWE NXT. What are your thoughts on this list? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Have I got any right? Have I got any wrong? Which ones are more likely than others? Let me know your opinions, your hot takes, as always, in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe. As you can see right there, we're at 20,587. Let's see if we can get closer to 20,600 on that road to 21K as the Wrestle News universe continues to expand. A reminder, you can join the WN365 roster. All you got to do is click the join button or scan the QR code. Links also in the video description. When it comes to the QR code, you can see there on the sidebar all of the upcoming watch-alongs for episodes of Raw, SmackDown, NXT Stand and Deliver, both nights of WrestleMania, and more details will be announced regarding that soon, so be sure to check out the sidebar. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.